All right, ladies and gentlemen, yes, it is I, the F4L icon, Sean Jazz Stevens, and welcome back to the F4L Headquarters Podcast with yours truly. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, thank you. You're too much. You're too kind. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, folks. We are here today, and we are live right now on both all of the platforms in which I am on, as well as my YouTube channel, which is Icons of the F4L, which is exciting in its own right. 1 second, folks. All right. I have myself a glass of milk, as well as some tea as well. So, double drinking. And I've also made a small snack of salad. I know, I'm lame. Anyway, folks, today's edition of the F4L Headquarters Podcast has a variety of things we're going to address. A lot of topics, and I think a lot of it is very much things that I think are far, not talked about enough. In some cases, not at all. Of course, we're going to get into a lot of that and then some, as well as some updates and what's going on with my life, what's going on in your lives, and also answering emails from our fans, from my fans, I should say, and addressing some of those as well as shout-outs as always. First and foremost, I guess since I'm already on YouTube, it makes sense to start with talking about our upcoming Open MMA tournament. This is our second annual Icons of the F4L Presents MMA Sickness Tournament, where we will crown the 2023 Icon of MMA. This is our second annual tournament, and we're very excited for it. Last year was huge. Last year was our first year doing an MMA tournament that was open, and back then it was also a tournament that everyone kind of voted on. People wanted to see an MMA tournament last year, and since we had so many amazing fighters back then, and so many amazing up-and-coming, rising future UFC Hall of Famers someday, we obviously had the open tournament, and we've had a lot of people on Dream Masters or Dream Matches come through our ranks, and we thought, well, since we are the original Dream Masters, and we do like our tournaments, I thought, why not make it an open MMA challenge where we'll kind of welcome in people who have some training in some type of combat sports, whether it be boxing, mixed martial arts of any degree, as well as any kind of training within combat sports, but also people who are known to be legitimate fighters. People who, for example, Chuck Norris, who is still eligible. And now when I say eligible, a lot of people might say, well, why isn't Bruce Lee in this tournament? And the reason being is because Bruce Lee is in our Hall of Fame. And a lot of people might wonder, why isn't Chuck Norris in the Hall of Fame yet? And the honest truth is, just because he wasn't selected in the last 2 years since we've had the Hall of Fame, but it doesn't mean that this year will be any different. We do believe that probably this will be his final year, and he will be inducted in probably the class of 2024. But again, because I do that whole thing with my son, Sean Awesome, the other half of Jazz and Sons Dream Matches, I would have to run that by him as we collectively agree upon the Hall of Fame class, which we did this year, and we've done it the last couple of years. So, and he comes on this podcast when we kind of reveal that to the world, which is kind of exciting too. But we are very excited for this year's event, as always. When is it going to take place? It's going to be in June of this year, 2023, as always. We're probably going to have it around the same time every year. So, first and foremost, it should probably be known it is a tournament. And I think it also needs to be said, I mean, anyone who watches our shows on a regular basis knows we have no control over the outcomes of any of our matches or our tournaments. We never know who's going to win, what's going to happen, who's going to do what. In all honesty, we don't even know who's going to face who until they're drawn. So let's take a moment, if you would, to kind of go over some of the details a lot of people might want to know about our Open MMA tournament. One, all of the matches will be under Dream Matches MMA rules, which anybody who watches our shows knows that we do have a Dream Masters BA MMA division in which people who are currently studying in various martial arts or combat sports, or the people kind of hardcore people, the tough guys of the world, they're generally on the Friday night show, which is where the Dream Masters BA MMA title is, as well as the Dream Masters BA MMA tag team titles. Currently are held by two legitimate tough people, three I should say. Our current reigning Dream Masters BA MMA Grand Prix tag team champions is Henry and Jairo Mena, the Mena boys. You've heard their names synonymous on this show. And in real life, they've been absolutely crushing competition. Henry just did an amazing job at his second, I think, boxing tournament, coming home with some gold, and congratulations to him. What makes the Mena boys amazing is how they've evolved, both in real life and on our show, and they always seem to add new tools to their toolbox of, their talents on the mat and whatever. They're always learning a new skill, a new hold, and that is something that will go far in life. So Henry and Jairo Mena, the current reigning Dream Masters BA MMA Grand Prix tag team champions, as well as the current reigning Dream Masters BA MMA Grand Prix champion, our singles champion, that is number one Noah the Nightmare Tyndall out of Liverpool, England. So yes, this is an international event, and people come from all over the world as part of our roster. This year, we have added some new faces that people have gotten to know since 2023. New people such as Easton McDonald, Speedy Easton McDonald, as well as Sergey Yakolov out of St. Petersburg, Russia. And the list kind of goes on from there. They are two of the biggest additions. Also, Lincoln Brooks, the younger brother of the American boxer Jaden Brooks, already a former tag team champion already. And the list kind of goes on from there. And of course, all of the Dream Masters BA MMA division guys will also take part in this event as well. People like the Adele boys, which, remember, this is our second annual tournament, which means last year was our first. And if you were wondering, well, what happened last year? Who won last year? Who is the icon of Who is the icon of MMA of 2022 rather? And the answer is, it came all the way down with a huge class of people. We had a bunch of people in this competition. It all came down to two young men as far as the Dream Masters go. And that came down to Jairo, the Pitbull Mena of the Mena boys, and Ty the Devil Odell of the Adele boys. Arguably two of the most respected and well-rounded fighters in real life and champions in real life, as well as on our show. And members of a family of just successful people. The Pitbull, of course, the younger brother of Henry, and Henry also came down to the finals. And Anthony the Hunter Adele also came down to the finals, and actually Ty the Devil had to actually defeat his own brother Mason the Hammer Adele to qualify, which is incredible. And if people are wondering, well, how do you come up with how do you find out who's going to face who? Well, that's very simple. Either I'm going to do a podcast live like this, only I'll actually have the video portion of it up. This show does have that as well. And I will draw them live, or I'm going to just simply drew the drawings live from the Jar of Fate, like I always do, live, and then put it up on YouTube for all you guys to see. And you can find out and kind of hear who's going to face who in what rounds. There's going to be several rounds, and we're going to go until all of the fighters have someone, and it's going to be even. And it's just like any other tournament. All of them will be under Dream Masters and our Icons MMA Grand Prix rules, which means the only which will all of them will take place inside the cage, and as well as the first person to get 2 points, and the only ways to get the points is by knockout or submission only. That they can get back-to-back knockouts or back-to-back submissions. That's up to the fighter. But they need to get whoever gets the first 2 points will win in advance. The finals of our tournament will be decided in an Ironman MMA submission match, an Ironman match in general. So whoever gets the most pinfalls or submissions when it comes down to the finals, they will win ultimately the title of being the icon, the 2023 icon of the MMA. Names I just mentioned are all taking place in that event since they're already on our show. Also, you can look forward to seeing former Dream Masters BA champion Leo the Bull Curtis out of over there in England as well as newcomers to this tournament, not to this show. New to this tournament is Grayson the Super Duck Russell, who really joined our roster in September, I want to say, which was after we did our tournament. So Grayson has not taken part in one of these events yet. And in real life, Grayson has done remarkably well in tournaments. Another newcomer to our tournaments is Speedy Easton McDonald, who's also done really well since joining the roster. And he is brand spanking new. And this is his first tournament on our show as well. So both Speedy Easton McDonald and Grayson the Super Duck Russell joining the roster, as well as Sergey Yakolov out of St. Petersburg, Russia. He is a young man who's a judo specialist, and he is all over the social media world, and he just has that flair. And we're going to see how he brings that flair to our tournament, as he will compete against all of these others. And let's not, make sure we're fully aware that we're going to also, it's an open MMA challenge. So anyone who is trained in any type of combat sports are eligible to take part in this. We do know that there's going to be some current and former UFC stars involved. There's going to be some action stars that are probably household names for some. Again, I believe this will be Chuck Norris's final tournament, as I do have a strong speculation that Chuck Norris will probably be inducted in the Hall of Fame next year in 2024. But again, that has not been confirmed nor denied. But he's going to be in this tournament, of course, as well as basically anyone who is still living and breathing and who is eligible. Again, who fits the criteria. Someone who is trained in any type of combat sports, boxing, wrestling, Greco-Roman wrestling I'm talking, or collegiate wrestling for some, as well as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, kickboxing, boxing, you name it, any kind of fighting style at all, Kempo, Judo, Muay Thai, then this is the tournament for you to show off to the world your skills. And the people I've already mentioned are all part of that, but also we're going to be opening the floodgates and inviting other people as well, and you might very well see greats like Conor McGregor, Floyd Mayweather, Mike Tyson, Manny Pacquiao, John Jones, Ken Shamrock, Daniel Pewter. These are all named the Spider Anthony Silva. These are all household names both in the octagon and the fighting world. But of course, we also have people like Jake and Logan Paul. We have our guys who are represented our shows on a regular basis, as some of them I already mentioned. Also, Khabib will be involved here as well. We'll be inviting Khabib to be part of this event. Paddy the Baddy Pambit is also on there. George St. Pierre. Jean-Claude Van Damme. Chung Lee. Yes, I said it's an open tournament, folks. Chung Lee from all of those blood sports and kickboxer movies, he will be there. And a list of others. But also we have some open spots still for some up-and-coming stars who want to show off their skills. So that being said, anyone who is trained in either boxing, any type of martial arts, and you want to be featured in our tournament to find out how well you'll do against either our regular guys or anyone else, you're more than welcome to let me know, and I will do my best to include you. We do have currently 4 open slots open. I did reach out to certain people tonight or today and did invite them to maybe take part. People who I believe to be future icons of the F4L, people who are amazing athletes, and we'll have to wait and see. This year, we're also going to have the Dream Warriors do the same thing. That's our women's roster for those people who don't know. So the women will be in action doing the same thing, and of course, we're going to have all of the women who are fit the mold like the guys do. And it's the same kind of rules. First person to 2 points will win. The current BA MMA champion for the women is Angela Russell, the mother of Grayson the Super Duck Russell. I guess the apple does not fall far from the tree. Both people do very well, and we're going to see how they do in their first tournament on our show. Angela will be taking part in that, as well as several others. Summer Payne will also be taking part. Kung Pao Rena, as well as April O'Neil, who's been hitting the gym hard, and the Ninja Turtles have got her trained. Speaking of the Ninja Turtles, they will also be taking part in the tournament. Again, this is a singles tournament. This is a solo thing. This is not a tag team tournament. So it's single elimination. So if you lose, that's it. You're moving on. And we're going to break it down by rounds. So there could be several rounds. And last year it worked out really well. Some shocking upsets, I would say, last year. Some really eyebrow-raising performances. And this year should be no different. So icons of the F4L and our open MMA sickness tournament will be coming to you starting June 4th, ladies and gentlemen. So just before I leave to take care of other matters, we will be taking part in that. Also, I should mention Yesenia Verkovitz will also be taking part, as well as Justin Bieber, Maddie B. Raps, who's just getting into combat sports, Rampage Ronnie Angle, Ryu, and I already mentioned everyone else, Christian and Christopher Convery. Also, all of the Adele boys. We have three of them. We have 3 of them right now, and I was told that possibly the 4th will be making his return back during the tournament. And I did, again, reach out to some people who I invited to be taking part, and I'm waiting to hear back from them. If they get in, then great. If not, we'll have to give those slots to someone else in time for June. So that's going to be epic. And what I'm going to do, like I said, is prior to the event, I'm going to do a live drawing of who's going to face who, and you'll also know what rounds they're going to face each other in. So that should be iconic and epic at the same time. And that is our Open MMA Grand Prix Grand Prix tournament, which we're very excited to bring you. Are you guys excited? Oh, all right. Excellent. That's fantastic. I'm glad you guys are excited. All right, folks. So that is going to do it for that segment. And now let us get into the other turns of events. Folks, let's transition to the next segment. Thank you. My marching ant friends are very nice to give me that serenading event. So, although now that I'm wondering why my friends the ants had to kind of give me that intro, considering we're going to talk about the filmmaking world and the speculation, rumors, and innuendo into Hellman Elementary. What's going on with Behe in 2023? Well, here's some cool stuff here. Listen to this. After the 6th of May, that's right, May 6th, which will be coming up soon, we will be doing even more promotions, and we will actually be doing more crowdfunding, as well as we will be having various of our stars, various members of our cast and crew will be coming on here to the F4L headquarters to kind of introduce themselves to you, the audience, and to let you guys know what you could expect in their performances. I'm not going to rattle off names right now, as we're going to wait till after the 6th to do that. However, I want to just say this. Richard M. Bourne and I have been working really, really hard on assembling this team. And I have to say that I am very excited for this team. And I am proud of the work that we've done together so far. I think we've put together a team that is going to be made of people who have various stages of experience within the film world or the entertainment world. But to me, what makes it awesome is I know that the same thing is going to happen right after this, and their careers are going to skyrocket after being on our set. So that is something that I look forward to. And people have asked me, Jazz, what is it like to work on a set, and what is it? What does it look like to work on a film set or a TV set and whatever? And people might wonder, what can they expect to work with me in general? Do I change much? What's different working on my set versus everyone else's set? Well, in hindsight and in fairness, in every single one of the auditions we've had, I take it upon myself to let people know that I am different than a lot of other filmmakers or TV producers or whatever the case may be, because I believe in the power of people first and foremost, and I believe the family-like atmosphere on set is important and vital to the success of the project. What does that mean exactly? Well, I want everyone to feel at home and be relaxed on set as much as possible. Because here's the reality, folks. Whenever you're working on a project, you're going to spend a lot of time with people, whether it be cast, crew, or whatnot. So it's best to have that good camaraderie with everyone you work with. Prior to filming, I generally will host some type of group building exercise or some fun activity that the cast and crew can kind of hang out together and get to know each other prior to filming, so that chemistry is there. And also, I also encourage the kids, because let's take this project for example. This is a coming of age story per se, and I've worked on anti-bullying films in the past, which are also coming of age film, short films or films in general. So that being said, whenever you're dealing with young kids, it's important to remind them that they are kids. As a filmmaker, you of course want to get your work done, you want to get your spots done, and you need to get your whatever the shots are for that day done. But in the same sense, you got to remember, even the most talented kid actor, at the end of the day, they could be the most well-trained child actor of all time. But the thing to remember is they are still children. They're still kids. They're still young. And I think the old ways, I mean, the film business has evolved so much over the years, and for some good and some bad. I think it's good that there's so many regulations and there's so many safety measures in place to make sure that the kids are safe, that they have the right people around them, they're not bringing just around anybody, that people are careful who they bring to these sets. What's funny is we talk about, people, my kids one time asked me where do rules come from? Like, why is that a rule? Why is that a law? In the, granted we're going to talk about family in the kind of the last segment, but to answer this question in this sense, why are rules made for film, television, and why do people need to say certain things? Well, the reality is because, one, it's probably happened that it needed to be addressed, and that is why it's literally said in that sense. So, for example, whenever working with young people, young actors or whatever else, I always insist upon a parent guardian being on set with them at all times. Now, let me tell you the difference between being on set and being a stage parent. Being on set just means you're there to make sure your kids are safe and that they're not being in harm's way and whatnot. That is what being on set is for me. Being a stage parent is a little different. Unless it's asked for or is delegated for such things, if we are if we're having a set and we're having the parents on set, the reason is really for safety reasons, all fairness, and so that everyone's knows everything's going on, and even though I've never had someone get injured on a set or anyone get hurt on set, it doesn't mean that I don't want to take that chance either. Which is why I always insist upon a parent. Why is that rule there, and why do I keep saying that? Because way back in the day, which, by the way, was not a Wednesday for my Dane Cook friends out there in the world. Those people who know that joke. Wasn't a Wednesday, it was a weekend. And we were filming at my brother's house, one of my early films. It was actually The Good Old Boy. And we were filming at my younger brother's house for the day, and we had one of the actors come. We had, first we had to wait for the star of the movie to come down because they took a little bit longer because they came from the furthest. But this was one of those days where everyone was on time for the most part. And then one of the kids, who was one of the people we hired to be the cousin of the main character, his dad said, "Well, what time are you guys going to be filming till?" And we told them how long generally they can last, which we'll get into that in a second. But we told them a kind of a roundabout answer. And he goes, "Okay, cool, we'll see you then." And he left. And if you didn't, and the reason why, he left. And if you noticed, I didn't say that he had his kid with him either. So we told him how long, the average shoot could go from anywhere between 5 and 6 hours or so, with breaks in between because they're young and whatever else. Time for lunch and hydrate and things like that. So let's say 5 to 6 hours or so on a set at a house that we're using on this film. That they don't know the people who we're shooting at. It was my brother, granted, and the kid was safe. It wasn't that. It was just like the parent in me, contrast with the entertainment person or the director or the filmmaker in me, because both at the same time I was flabbergasted that someone would just drop their kid off at a film set and then pick them up later. I understand when parents want their kids to perform on their own. Sometimes we have kids where this is what the kids want to do, and the parents really want little to do with the whole thing. I get that, and it makes sense. I get that. Trust me. But then you have the other kind, the people who just don't want to be any part of any of this. There are parents who, are on set who are just on set. But then you have the parents who are on set who like to throw in their 2 cents. And I don't mean like production-wise or to, add some constructive criticism or to add something as far as, whatever else, but more yelling at their kid to work better or telling the kid what he should be saying or doing when he's on set, or he or she, I should say, because we work with both young males and females. And to me, I feel like that's counterproductive as well. When I say a laid-back, stress-free environment, that's exactly what I mean. It needs to be like a family-like atmosphere. It needs to be relaxed and as laid back as possible. And why is that important? Because, all honesty, if you have that chemistry with each other and the kids trust each other and they work really well and they gel well as a team, you don't have to worry about the kids being outlandish, going off kiltered, being so far out of control that you can't rein them in. And I think Richard and I have done a good job in this sense, getting kids who are fantastic at what they do. But also, I don't think we have to worry too much about that in this sense. But, the long story short is, why are rules there? Well, we tell people they have to have a parent on set because both Richard and I, and now remember, Richard does things, comes in things to do a little differently. Richard has these models and actors come in and portray the people in his books at the signings, which, by the way, I thought was a genius idea, which is one of the reasons why I was so looking forward to working with Richard, because he's one step ahead of a lot of the other writers out there in the world, which is why, it was a hands-down idea. And then reading the book and reading what I was working with, it's written for television. So it was wasn't even a question of could I do it or would I do it. Absolutely, I would do it. It's kind of easy once you get that down. But as far as, things have to be put in place. Richard had a parent just drop their kid off at a pop culture convention where the kid was, supposed to help him play one of the characters in his books, but the parent just left them there at a pop culture convention, like a Comic-Con. Anyone who's ever been to a Comic-Con knows that there could be anywhere between a few thousand to many thousands of people there from all walks of life, from various stages of fandom at these events. And there might be some even not so interesting people. There might be some sketchy people at those things too. Let's be fair and honest. And just to drop your kid off at a pop culture convention, like, okay, have a good day, we'll see you later, is just baffles me as a parent and as someone who does that. Now, being from the film world, I've had that very happen. I told that story. I want to say the young man did a great job for what we needed for, and it was a great life lesson. And he was safe, and we made sure he was okay, and we fed him, and we took care of him like anybody else would. But just the idea, why they have to have a parent on set is for that very reason. So there's that. So what else to expect working on my sets is encouraging others to do is encouraging young people to kind of pair off and kind of be kids off screen when they're not on screen, in other words. So, again, they're kids. We're gonna be filming pretty much towards the beginning of the summer, so kids are out of school, and they're kids for the most part. So I'm going to encourage the kids to be kids and have fun. And when they're not on set and they're not, doing something, we're going to have them take those roles and do those things. We're going to have them have fun. Let them be kids. Let them adventure. Let them, make sure they're safe and, the buddy system, so to speak. I think one of the best things to do is, one of the biggest suggestions I can have for people whenever working on a set of any kind with anyone, male, female, young, old, if you know you're going to be working with someone, once you get to know them, try to kind of get to know them off a camera and try to get a feel for them, who you're going to be working with the most. For example, if you have a person you're going to be working off of, a dialogue with, an exchange, so to speak, then I think it's important to get to know that person so you have that, wherewithal, so you kind of know how that works. How do they work? Can they go off the cuff? Do they need to go by the book? And what do you have to do differently to do that? So those are the kinds of things you got to look to, is who you're going to be working off of. For us, for example, we have many various different people. Some of them play best friends on our show who may never have met each other. Sometimes we'll have people who are very much opposites, playing the opposite kind of character than they are in real life. And then you have to kind of make them, like, for example, we have two bullies in this movie, or the show rather, who are probably going to be the nastiest bullies ever, but are two of the nicest young men you'll ever meet. But, camera work and film and television and magic, you'll never know that. But, for example, for those two young men, I would probably pair them off and make sure that they spend time together. But I also wouldn't exclude them from the activities of the other kids too, because, again, we want to make sure the kids know that this is work, this is film, and this is just pretend. They're not actual bullies. They're not actually tormenting them. They're not really doing these things. And I think it's important to remind these kids that these are things that are real for those kids. These are, well-trained actors and models, and a lot of these kids have many various degrees, like I said, of experience. And one of the things that we want to watch out for is that people don't, buy into the characters so much so that they can't see past it. That's one thing you want to avoid. And knowing where the difference is, where the Bill Skarsgård is and the Pennywise begins, so to speak, for those people who want a film reference. Bill Skarsgård, probably one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet, outside of the Pennywise attire. Pennywise, on the other hand, is a nasty clown who is a nightmare. David Howard Thornton, more recently, another clown. In real life, David Howard Thornton, very nice guy, very energetic, very cool. I actually saw David Howard Thornton dancing a couple weeks ago, and it was quite the experience to see this man dance. And yes, he can dance. But, his character he portrays is probably the modern day clown that everyone loves to hate, and that's Art the Clown. And, when he's Art the Clown, he's going to be in character, and he gets into that character, and he does a fantastic job. Anyone who's seen the Terrifier movie, or Terrifier 2, particularly, knows that David Howard Thornton can turn it off and on, and he's fantastic at that. That is a sign of a great actor. So there's that. But that's kind of things that you can look forward to. I believe in having music in between takes to relax everyone. And, trying to get a feel for what everyone likes for music. I believe in jokes. I believe in having laughs. I believe in relaxing and just taking things one thing at a time. Because listen, the reality is this. whenever you're on any kind of a set, whether it be television, movies, or whatever, you're going to be on set for a while, regardless what it is. Now, the fun reality part of it is, it might take you 5 hours to film a scene. Yes, you heard that right. 5 hours to film maybe a 3-minute scene in a TV series. Depending on what the scene is, it could take even longer for some scenes. You might have to break the scene into 2 parts. So, in other words, you're going to be spending a lot of time with people on set. People you may know, people you don't know. But the idea is, and I do encourage this, while there, make some new friends. And hold on to those relationships. And here's why I say that. In anything I've ever done in my lifetime, whether it be, martial arts, sports, wrestling, film, etc., I always keep a Rolodex in my head of all of the people who I've met over the years, and I don't forget anybody. And I also like to make sure once in a while I reach out to people to make sure they're doing okay. When I made The Good Old Boy, some of the people I already knew from helping cast another film when I was an intern for another film project for somebody else. So when it came time for me to film The Good Old Boy and start doing casting, a lot of those people I would bring in and I casted because I already knew who they were or I had comfortable with them and whatnot. Now, The Good Old Boy technically was going to be my first solo project. And now we're going to get into the pros, cons, and dark sides of things to look out for whenever you're working on a project. And this is also going to, talk about my trust issues as well. And you'll understand why. So when I graduated from film school, I had written a grant proposal that I was awarded to make my film. The grant was given to me by Landmark Cinemas, and they gave me a grant to make my first film upon graduation. They loved my script concept, which I called the open-ended script. Excuse me. Now, I want to kind of be clear on this. The open-ended script is something that now people have adapted and have used on their own, so they're not going to be using my words or whatever else, so this is not something that I have to worry about disclosing. Because you'll notice I'm very careful what I say and what I don't about certain projects I do. And this is kind of why. This is exactly the reason why. Because we all learn lessons, right? So, now, when it came down to it, I was given the grant to make my film. I was just started working, helping train at this wrestling school, pro wrestling school, for those people who are wondering. And actually, it was going to be my return to wrestling after being injured for several years. And again, the reason why I was in film school or college in general is because I was injured from my first passion, which was pro wrestling. While I was injured, I wasn't allowed to go to a gym or work out because, that's kind of was my I had to rebuild my leg and stuff like that. Not rebuild my leg, but I had to basically heal 100% because at that point, I was in rough shape and I had to stop working out and everything else, which a lot of people don't know, or sometimes you do, but when I started lifting weights when I was about 13 years old, and from 13 all the way till I was injured, I was always in the gym. I was always lifting weights. I was always active. I still am very active, by the way. And I still have a lot of that strength and so forth, but unfortunately, in time, your body just, as you get older, it has a hard time to kind of keep up to everything else. So my blood pressure, my blood levels, my cholesterol, all is top notch. I'm in perfect health. But, like, unfortunately, due to the fact that I wasn't able to go to the gym like I was in my age or whatever, it looks like I'm very unhealthy. But in reality, I'm extremely healthy. And some people might wonder, well, Jazz, I mean, you must be eating a lot then, right? Well, no, but we'll get into that when we go into the 7 things you should know about me, or the 7 pros and cons of me. But anyway, we'll relabel that later, because I don't know what we're going to call that segment. But getting back to the story at hand. So, being awarded a film grant was an amazing feeling. I just got out of film school, like I said, and Landmark Cinemas were the ones who gave me the grant to make my film, which would give me the option to hire people or get different okays from different places. Again, I studied New York style of film, which is independent, versus Hollywood style, which is a different type of film. And to be fair, I do know both. It is a myth that you can only learn one or the other. When you go to film school, you learn everything that is involved in filmmaking business. When you have a film degree, you know everything that there is to know about making and producing a film. By the books, anyway. Of course, getting to do it, that's why you have internships and things like that, so you can learn on the job, which was good for that reason. But in theory, it's something you're just going to learn in time anyway. So there's that. But so there I was working for this company and just started working. I was training the company on the students at the wrestling company in how to do promos, which is talking, which is something I'm still good at, and something that in wrestling I excelled in. And just taking a moment real quick, I saw a lot of people who are giving props and praise to their coaches and their senseis and whatever. And I think this is an important thing that we should always keep in mind. Don't just dictate one day or have like today's National Coach Day or National Sensei Appreciation Day. Show appreciation every day, because at least for me anyway, I always reflect upon everyone who's helped me get to where I am in life. All of the senseis I've had, the coaches I've had, and the mentors I've had. I reflect upon all those, and I always hold them near and dear to me. The lessons I've learned are vital to everything that I have accomplished and everything that I pass on to everyone else. So there's that. But anywho, I was training them the students at the wrestling company, how to do promos, how to talk, and how to make it look realistic or whatever. This is also where the character Jazz Fitness would be born. Those people who are aware of the YouTube sensation Jazz Fitness, this is kind of around that era. And this is where I would meet another young man who was in high school, because if your parents signed off on the release, you could actually train as young as 15 at this company. So we had a couple, high schoolers in our wrestling company, in our wrestling camp, training on the weekends. That just means that we were training them so that, they know the proper ways and they're not hurting themselves in the ring. Proper bumps and safety in the ring, because that's safety first. And then, of course, promos would come after, and how to sell and things of that nature. Those come along after the fact. But that's where I would meet this young man who was going to culinary school in high school, and he was also someone who really enjoyed holding the camera for the wrestling company. Whenever they needed someone to, hold the camera to film a practice, he would volunteer to do so. And let me tell you about independent filmmaking and doing a lot of things. Because I'm me, and because I really like to make sure everything is done, and the only person I really 100% know will get it done, regardless of how much faith I have in the whole team, is going to be me. I'm going to take the blunt of it if it goes wrong, and I'm also going to take the heat if it goes right, or one way or the other. that was back then, of course. That was my first film because I'm the one that had the grant, and I was the one that had to make this, this project, this film, The Good Old Boy, based upon the script structure that I mentioned earlier, the open-ended script, which got an A- in my film writing course, which is one of the reasons why I got the grant. Because in order to get the grant, you had to submit your script, and if they liked your script and your style and all those things, that's how you got your grant, the grant. Which I don't know if they do anymore, and well, then again, the school's not there anymore, so hard to say. But that's kind of how that came to be. And while at this wrestling thing, the young man, saw that I had the script going, and he, whatever else, and I was, getting ready to cast and all these other things, and he wanted to kind of learn more about that kind of business, what it's like to work on a set, kind of an idea. And because I believe in helping people and, giving people tools, and that sometimes people don't have those options. I mean, how often do you have the opportunity to work on a film set or to work in a wrestling show or to whatever? Well, that's kind of what, the way I look at things, teaching the younger crew so years later they can do the same in return. Well, I invited him to be on the set and, to hold the camera for a say or assist with those kinds of things, and he ended up doing that. And because, he was evolving in his video, in his, his basically recording for the wrestling company, and they trained him how to do a lot of those things. He then asked me to write him a letter of recommendation to my film school, which I did. He went to the film school, and it was really on my set that he learned a lot of that early stuff. He learned how to do the casting. We learned how to do the, all of those things. I showed him how to write a script. But then he got into film school, and they kind of retaught him a lot of those things, and he fine-tuned it, and I was happy for him. And basically, the way we kind of broke it up was, I would have him be kind of the camera guy and the, the cinematography director while I was busy doing everything else. Now, let me tell you, what I was doing was not only was I director, and not only did I write, direct, cast, produce, location scouted, got all the permits to film and all these other things I had to do to get these things done, make all the agreements with all of the places to film at, then do the casting with him, mind you, and we recorded those, and then all of that, and then had to set up the the snacks and the catering, as well as after the end of filming, we had to go and get something to eat. So we would, go to usually Wahlburgers or something like that. But his job really was to hold the camera and that stuff there, and then edit it, because he was good at that as well. Since the wrestling company showed him how to do that as well, and then again, wrestling, and then regular film school helped him, really fine tune that. So he was a tech guy. And then what ended up happening with that, and I've told this story before, and unfortunately, I still won't bring the person's name up because they're not worth that. But for those people who always wonder, well, what is this guy's name? Well, technically speaking, if you guys go back to one of my early podcasts on the F4L headquarters, when my cousin Shaheem was on, he actually said his name because he had met him at one of my parties and one of my gatherings or whatever, and he also lied to my cousin and so forth, like he lied to me. But anyway, we're not going to talk about that. But basically, the idea of this little piece here is you have to be careful who you let into your project. You also have to protect your project at all costs. So one of the reasons why I'm so, I'm going to be very careful what I say and what I don't. Obviously, we know what I'm working on because that has been revealed for the most part. As far as who, what, when, why, how, when, and all those things are not going to find out until probably after the 6th of May, which is coming up. And there are probably going to be some things you still won't know until you see it on TV. But in hindsight, what I really want to point out and stress to you guys is you need to trust your instincts. As a filmmaker and as someone who's putting together a project, you need to trust your instincts. Many times during those early days when I brought that person on set, I overlooked things. I made kind of excuses for why something didn't go the way it should have. I excused the fact that, he wasn't the same as I was. He wasn't as punctual as I was. For example, casting-wise, if you set up a casting call for someone, and this is going back to when you actually had to show up to do casting, not virtual, but you actually went to a casting call. So the way I know it to be, and the way I would do it anyway, is I would be ready to go early, because I'm certain that there's going to be people like me who will like to show up early to everything. And of course, he, on the other hand, he would, say, okay, well, we're going to have the auditions at 4 o'clock. I'll be there at 4 o'clock. But not taking into account that the people might be coming from a little bit of a distance, and they're going to be there at 3. Or a few minutes before 4. And he's going to show up at 4. Which means the people who are auditioning are going to be waiting for him, which is never how it should go. If you are someone who's auditioning, and you are someone who is waiting for the producer, the director, the casting director, then there's somewhat of an issue there, unless it's like right now with like virtual stuff, where perhaps right now they might be backed up with another audition prior to you calling in or your time or whatever. I will be honest with you guys, I am still very old school. I still prefer in-person auditions, because there are things you see on the auditions in person that you cannot see in a virtual audition. Yes, you can read lines great, but as far as a visual goes, I'm someone who can spot a talent or see something in someone that not a lot of people will. Which is why I've also been known to just add a scene here and there for the Good Old Boy. Like I invented a whole scene that didn't exist originally because we had 5 people who were very talented. But again, another thing I believe in is if someone, excuse me, as I take a sip of my milk, sorry. If someone takes the time to audition for your project, I believe that they should be rewarded in some fashion. So if I see something special in them, they bring something different that no one else has, a certain talent or something that sets them aside that I can ultimately highlight so that they can move on in their career or they can do something bigger and better as time goes on. I will invent a scene for that person. I will write in a scene. Like I invented this one scene, like I said. It was a group therapy scene. So we had 5 people who auditioned for one role. That role ended up going to somebody else, but we still invited them to take part in this event. And that's how they ended up, being in the thing. And there were some very talented people that we worked with. And, a lot of people wonder, where do you find these actors and how do you, all honesty, there's all kinds of places they come from. A lot of word of mouth. You put in a casting call. I personally prefer working with non-union actors. I know there are people who work with union actors or SAG people. I try to avoid the SAG stuff, if I'm being honest, because I feel like it adds more headaches in the long run for me. Again, a stress-free environment and whatever. I also hold my sets to be to the highest standards with safety and making sure everyone's being well taken care of and well helped. It's productive, but also it's fun. It's not stressful. These are things that are important to me as well. So these are things that I know that SAG wants a lot of those things, but I'm not going to have everyone kind of being treated like robots because they want to be, something like that. So that's why I tend to get the non-union actors and actresses and so forth, because I feel like they have more opportunities. And after doing research, because it's been a little while since I've done film school, I looked into the whole SAG thing. There's a lot of things that people should really look into when it comes to joining the SAG. And again, if this is something you're interested in and that you feel like you need to do, then absolutely go for it. But just to give people the heads up, the reality of it is, and again, and a lot of this has to do with the fact that, again, just because I prefer to work in New York style or independent film, and I also prefer to work with non-union actors, doesn't mean that I'm going to exclude other people who are SAG or try to tell other people how they should do things. That's not what I'm going to do. But what I am going to tell you is this. To those people who ever wonder, well, what is SAG? How does that work? Is it worth doing? Should I do the SAG? Well, here's some things you should know about SAG. Depending on where you are in your career, I think that's ultimately where you have to look at first. What kind of a director? What is your portfolio looks like right now? Are you getting a lot of auditions right currently, or are you not? Because here's the thing. Once you are a union, once you are SAG, first and foremost, you pay anywhere between about $3,000 to get into SAG. That's something you should know. That is an initiation fee, a one-time initiation fee. So again, you don't have to pay that every time, folks. But there's a $3,000 initiation fee to join the union, and then you get a union fee every month that ranges anywhere from $250 to $300 every month for being SAG. Now, if you're one of these people who think, well, should I do SAG and how does that work and blah, 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 well, it puts you will have a good chance of being seen at higher functioning positioning roles, like union type shows, like shows that are on a regular basis, huge movie productions like Warner Brothers, Fox, something like that. Well, then you might get into the SAG. And if you get into the SAG, in some states, you got to look into this too, but some states force you to join the SAG, whether you want to or not. I think it's like, for example, New York, for example, if you do more than one union job, you actually have to become SAG certified. If you don't, you're going to not be happy and they're not going to like that. But here's the thing to remember about SAG versus non-union actors or actresses. SAG, yes, you're going to get the first shots at the biggest roles. Probably going to look at a lot seriouser than someone who's not union. But because you're SAG, that also is going to limit you to what you can do. Because as a SAG member, you cannot work on a non-union project. Legally, you cannot. That means if you are a SAG actor and you have a SAG card, to work on, you would have to jump through hoops to work on my project, because our project is not a union job right now. So that is something to remember. So if you're someone who likes to do student films or stage work or commercial work and a plethora of those things, well, then maybe you want to wait to become SAG certified, because if you are, a lot of those opportunities are going to go away because you're not going to allow to make the student films or all those other things unless they are union. And I can tell you this, a lot of those different things, a lot of the commercial people, a lot of the students and so forth will only use non-union actors. I know, it's like a catch-22. So if you want a really good role, you should be SAG. You'll get more opportunity. But if you are SAG, you're going to lose out on opportunities for smaller projects which would also ultimately probably lead to more work, regardless. So, just something to keep in mind, food for thought about the SAG, working on whatnot. However, also trusting your instincts, like I said. And if I had listened to my instincts about this person, I would have avoided a lot of my headaches that came after the fact. The fact that he lied to me and then tried stealing the project. But fortunately, folks, the good news is I did show up to film school, and I graduated from film school with, pretty decent degree, pretty decent grades at the highest standards, and I was able to, I showed up to the copyright law class that apparently he missed, and that's why I am much better off than he is right now. But in the long run, just before I end this little segment here that I feel like I ranted on for a little bit, but I am looking forward to being back on a set and helping everyone bring together everyone as one. Because the way I look at any project, ultimately, is it's not my movie, it's not my show, it's our movie, it's our cast, it's our project, not mine. Because as I said on my Instagram Live the other day during the Motivational Monday the other night, I had said that, how when it comes to doing the various I lost my train of thought, folks. Isn't that wonderful? Oh, man. I just talked about this, too, the other day. Anyway, the moral of this story of what I was trying to get out is that it's important to, 1, trust your instincts, 2, follow up on everything, and 3, look at it. Oh, that's what I remember. It doesn't matter what the project is. Everyone needs a whole team behind them to make the project work. Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, and anyone else like that I mentioned, it wasn't because I was just saying their names to say their names. It was because I was pointing out that these are names that are synonymous with successful films. But without the cast and the crew and all of the special effects and everything that went into making the film, other than just either their writing or their directing, ultimately it would have been a flop. And things like E.T. or Star Wars would never have been a big thing at all without the help of everyone who helped bring those things to life. That's ultimately what the moral of that was. And ultimately, I look forward for Richard to see his characters that he's created in his mind in real life on a screen. As a writer and as someone who's done film, that is an amazing feeling of accomplishment. Especially when as a writer or anyone in film, how critical everyone is of you. You'll have those people who say, well, writing isn't even a job, or filmmaking isn't a job, and whatever else. But guess what? If it pays your bills in some manner, then it is a job. If it in some way, some fashion helps you evolve your goals, then it's a type of job. So there's that. So keeping those things in mind. So that was our segment on Hellman Elementary. And again, May 6th, we are going to have an all cast and crew meeting, our first all cast and crew meeting, where all of the cast will meet each other virtually for the first time, officially. And it's going to be an amazing time on May 6th. You guys will not see that yet. But following that, in the weeks after that, you'll probably have some of my new friends I will introduce to you guys here on this show. They can tell you guys about what they've done already, what they're going to be doing, and various things of that nature. We look forward to that. And I can tell you that I look forward to working with everyone who is involved in this show. Everyone has already been so passionate and so helpful already, has believed in it, and will continue to believe it. And we're going to make this successful. And again, I wanted to do a special shout out to, well, first, Richard Bourne for trusting and believing in the project, and know that I'm going to make sure that this thing is successful, and you have a whole team behind you that's going to make sure that your characters, your books are on television. I give you that. And the other shout out I wanted to, include here is someone who isn't necessarily associated with our project at all. Actually, isn't associated with our project, but just because of what they did for people like myself and for Richard, that of course is Damien Leone, filmmaker, director extraordinaire of the Terrifier 2 series film, or the Terrifier movies in general. A lot of people might say, well, he made one, that Terrifier 2 movie, and what's so great about him, and whatever. I think what you guys are failing to see, if people don't know, how important what he did was. You see, what you might not know is all of the work and the years that it took for him to put that together, Terrifier 2. Damien Leone was someone, first and foremost, Terrifier 2 was a crowd-funded project, which meant that the crowd, the fans who believed in Damien Leone and his team, who believed in Art the Clown, who believed in the project, so different levels and so forth, contributed to making the project work. And then when it came out, it got so much buzz, and it became one of the most successful movies of the era, of the year. Really, ultimately, it became a huge hit because of word of mouth, people talking about it, the news stuff that was attached to it. So ultimately, what Damien Leone really did and his team did is open the doorway for people like myself and give us the tools to do things like crowdfunding to get our projects the way it should be. So I want to thank Damien Leone and his team for giving people like filmmakers like myself or TV makers like myself hope that these things are possible, and this is a model that we're looking at. More information will be coming soon from Hellman Elementary, so stick around for those things. So let's get ready, folks, as we're going to go one more journey, and this time we're going to take a journey to Parenting 101. So let's get on at that. All right, we are here now in our third segment, Parenting 101, and family stuff. So, which is interesting. But I just wanted to go back real second to our last segment when I talked about developing Hellman Elementary. And I just want to say again to everyone who's already signed on, who may be listening right now, I want to say thank you guys for believing in this project. I want to say it's going to be a great time, and it's going to be an honor to work with all of you to make sure that all of your names are household names before this thing is over with. That's the last thing I'm going to say about that. So let's give them actually a round of applause for everyone already who's part of that team. That's right. Give it up for them. That's right. Absolutely. So absolutely well-deserved to everyone who's already signed on. So let's get into our subject on Parenting 101 and whatnot. So what is this segment? What are we doing here? Well, here's a couple things. Well, lately, and not lately, I mean, this is kind of a thing that's been going on for a while, is various different things that have to do with social media and its impact on our youth and our kids and stuff like that, how to keep them safe and whatever else, and the whole war over TikTok, the whole thing about Twitter recently is having issues with Elon Musk and all of those things. Here's a couple things, here's a couple takeaways that I have from the thing as people asked me my points of view on the subject of social media and its damage or pros, cons, or whatever. What is the reality? When I was 8 to 18, when I was 5 to 18, there was no social media. There was no one to put my fights anywhere on YouTube, on social media, because there was no such thing. There was no way to actually see what other people were doing or what other fighters were doing unless you were, one, at the regional tournaments, or two, again, somehow had it gotten a hold of a recording of that tournament after the fact. So, as far as being someone who posts things or whatever else. So, how I came across YouTube is accidental. It was from the wrestling show. The wrestling company I just mentioned, when they thought of the Jazz Fitness character, they thought, how funny would it be if we had these promos and we put them up on this new platform called YouTube, where people can actually watch the videos that are related to our show. And then we're going to give you a talk show segment called the Fitness Center, where you're going to have an in-ring talk show and have various guests either beat you up or whatever, comic relief, whatever. And I was all for that. I do whatever I can to help the promotion or whatever. And that was kind of my introduction to YouTube as we started recording these various segments and promos. Probably one of the most popular one was one called Jazzercising with Jazz Fitness. That one was before they did copyrights on music on YouTube. They played it was my workout, basically, supposedly, to Eye of the Tiger, the activities ranged from really pathetic looking push-ups and sit-ups, being inspired by a Twix bar, to the worst jumping jacks, or in our case, Jazzy Jacks, you'll love a C. And it ranged in various different things like that, all up on YouTube, and it was very popular at that time. And so were the other Jazz Fitness videos that followed after that, because they ranged in various different activities and so forth. And it was great portraying those things. So you might be asking yourself, so what does this have to do with Parenting 101, the fact that you were on YouTube doing these things back then and whatever? Well, that was my first experience with that platform, but I was familiar with something that just started called MySpace, and I would actually reach out and talk with other people from YouTube who were the early pioneers of YouTube, really, where we would, collaborate on things. We would talk about things. I would educate them about the wrestling world, because at that point, remember, when YouTube came around and when Jazz Fitness came out, I had already been in the wrestling world. I've already been around the business. So it's not like I was new to how it worked. I know exactly how it worked. So a lot of the times, a lot of people would find that stuff, that information, very valuable. So that's why I kind of, became, friends with the early YouTube guys. People who are probably not even on the platform anymore because of how demanding, really. I talked before about the dangers of the fandom. Our fans, the trolls, they can be so mean, so dangerous. Most of them, let's be honest, are just going to be as tough as there are because they're behind a keyboard. But if you're a family person and someone who has children, I have to be honest with you guys. I have to say that you have to be careful what you post on any kind of social media. I don't care what the platform is. And the reason isn't because you don't want to be proud of your kid's accomplishment. That's not the problem. The problem is you don't know who's seeing those accomplishments and why they're watching it. For example, me, I like to support these people who are doing things that I did at their age. A lot of the people who I usually will the ones that I usually will interact with are people who are either have done combat sports, health kinds of things, entertainment kind of things. I've done a lot of those things. So I'm drawn to people who are just as successful and goal-driven as I am, is the moral of that story, no matter how old they are. And in fact, I have great respect for people who put more work into getting their goals and dreams done because they know that it can come with a lot of work to get those things done. I had to earn everything on my own, just like these people are doing the same. And that's why I have so much respect for those who are working hard. So when I reach out to someone on social media, it is always at a professional level because I keep it professional as it should be. I am very nice. I try to be respectful. And if they're going to be disrespectful, then I'm not going to put up with that either. And I'm just not going to entertain that idea or entertain that, whatever. But if they're respectful with me, I'm respectful to them. The golden rule, folks. Remember? Well, that being said, you need to be careful because you don't know. Not everyone's going to be me on social media. I have gotten into arguments with other trolls on young people's feeds because there were creeps on there being inappropriate with people's kids. But the biggest question people have is, where were the parents? How comes they don't know? Well, as a parent, we need to know more. And that's kind of what this little thing here is being more aware of what goes on in our kids' lives. I know that this is a long segue into this topic, but let me break it down to you like this. Every day, our kids do all kinds of various things. Maybe they're just regular, everyday kids who go to school, but don't do much of anything else. But they might post something or whatever else. But the idea of this is, how much about your kids do you actually know? And that might sound like an interesting concept. Well, of course, you live with your kids, you take care of your kids, you love your kids, and you might pay for their greatest school ever and the best teachers or whatever. But at the end of the day, how much do you know about your kids outside of what you see on the surface? What do I mean by that? Well, how about this? Can you name your, whether your son or daughter, can you name their best friend? Do they have a best friend? What's their best friend's name? Where did they meet? How long have they been best friends for? These are questions you should know as a parent. Why? Why is that important to know as a parent? Because your kids are going to tell you to mind your own business. Your kids are going to tell you that, don't worry about it, it's all fine, I can handle this. If your kids use that lingo, then that's actually opposite code. That means you should worry about this and that this is something that's going to come back to haunt you later. That's what that code is. So remember that. And I'm not saying every kid is like this. That every kid's not respectful and every kid's not honest, every kid's not whatever, because kids honestly are the most resourceful and honest people out there. The problem comes to be when, something comes up, some horrific thing will come in, and then all of a sudden, the parents say, well, I didn't even know. I didn't know this was going on. I didn't know they were being bullied. I didn't know to this extent. And that's kind of what the point of this is to be aware what's going on in your kids' lives. Does your kid play a sport? If your kid plays a sport, who's on his team? Who's his coach? What does his coach do? How often do they practice? What time is practice over? Who are his friends on the team? What's his position on the team? Does he even like that sport, or is he doing it to honor you? Or was he tricked into it? Are they a partier? Are they a drinker? These are all things, as a parent, you should know about your own kids. Facts on that. You should know if they have a best friend and what their best friends' names are. Because ultimately, kids are very honest again. They'll tell you who their friends are, that we're going to see such and such, or me and such are going to see, we have this event planned, or we're going to do this thing together. And that's because, again, the kids will be resourceful in that sense, and they'll tell you who their friends are. They'll tell you what them and their friends are going to do. It's up to us parents to pay attention to those things and be mindful of them. Well, okay, if who are your friends hanging out with? Because after that, then you're going to be like, well, not my kid. My kid would never do this, that, the other thing. Because ultimately, if you don't know who they're hanging around with, then you don't know who the ringleader is of their group. Maybe they are the mastermind of whatever the issue is, and maybe they did something they weren't supposed to. But if you don't know who your kids' parents are, who your kids are hanging around with, and if you don't know what's going on in your kids' lives individually, how are they doing in school? What's their favorite subject? If they watch television, what is their favorite television show? Why is it their favorite television show? How do they dress? What colors do they like? Are they a flashy person or are they a dark person? These are all things you should know. If you don't know those things for certain, then you need to ask and have a conversation with your kids. Get to know your kids. That's ultimately what it comes down to. I get we get busy and things come up. But we need to make sure our kids are safe because they're ultimately our biggest priority. And we're going to make sure that they're taken care of. And our wives too, if you have such a thing. It's important to have respect when you're interacting in front of the kids. This is a tip to those people who have relationships where maybe you were boyfriend and girlfriend and you guys had a kid, or maybe, whatever. The important thing is to always make sure that you're honest with each other, you're honest with your kids, and you're honest with the relationship. Because when you're not, the kids notice this. Kids will question it, kids will be stressed out, and they will act out upon those things, and it'll be a lot worse. But as a parent, you also need to know what's going on in the kids' lives. Are they getting bullied at school, or are they the bully? And if they are the bully, how do you deal with your kid being a bully? Do you support them, or do you ground them? What do you deal with that for? What is your take on that? And these are the things that you need to ask as a parent to make sure you're effective in that role. So, folks, this isn't going to be a very thing. I've been on here for a little while, an hour and 30 minutes. I did touch on all of my subjects. I did want to. But now the last little thing I got to do, we got one more segment. Let's get into that coming up now. And start up the band. Oh, thank you. I was in the middle of my snack. I was hoping the ants would play a little longer, but I guess not. Oh, well. Well, folks, I promised this at the end, and this is something I think everyone should do, as I think it's important for yourself, also self-discovery, and as well as being honest with not only yourself, but everyone else as well. And also, this is going to tie into our last topic, which was keeping kids safe on social media. And be aware of what they're doing, what they're posting, who they're posting it to, who they're talking to, why they're friends with them, and whatnot. Ask questions if you don't know the answers. Your kids will tell you as long as you're willing to listen. And I don't mean hear, I mean listen to your kids. But anyway, so everyone loves to highlight all of the good things about themselves. But a lot of people will do that inner look at themselves to actually see that they themselves have their own individual flaws. So what I thought I would do is compile a list and be the guinea pig and share with you guys 7 cool facts that are really cool about me, and 7 things that you're like, how are you even still, a member of society? Because that's a strange thing, or, I never would have guessed that particular part of it, or whatever the case may be. So enjoy this segment called Lists 14. So let's start with the 7 good things about me. These are things that I have either been told or things that I stand by and get reports on. So there's that. So, basically, it's a pretty cut and dry scenario. This person was from whatever. Hold on. All right, 7 fun things about me. 1, I'm trustworthy. 2, I'm... Excuse me, 1 second. Hiccups all of a sudden. All right, that's better. 7 good things. 1, I'm trustworthy. 2, I'm punctual. 3, I am a great driver. 4, I am great at being a dad and a husband. That's important because that's the feedback I get from them, not my own self-worth. I have a voice, and I'm not afraid to use it and know how to use it effectively. I have confidence. Let's see. Those are the 7 good things about me. But here are the things that maybe I should either work on or just accept the fact that I fail at these things. So here we go. Khabib, who I just mentioned earlier, apparently he has a hard time seeing or whatever, so there's no sense of, really messing along with that. So here are the 8 cool things about me that I need to work with. 8, people, as I said, are not fully equipped to deal with what I am versus what everyone claims to be. Number 2, you guys have saunas and I don't. Number 10 is I don't. Number 10 is I don't like to get involved in mixed types of tags and stuff like that. I don't get involved in other people's relationships unless I need to, as I find that it never turns out well whenever you take a side in something of that magnitude. Number 12 is a variation of the don't trust me thing, or to believe in oneself, or the iTunes world, making sure everything is on the up and up. So remember that too. Other things include a self-power thing on self-esteem. Apparently you're going to be doing a variation of paw red set of paws, apparently. It's a thing you've been already looked at. And what else? And I'm blunt and honest, and I honestly don't know how sometimes you deal with some of the creeps that you do deal with. I give you all the credit for it. I wouldn't be so nice, so keep up the great work on that end. And folks, that's going to do it for this episode of Icons of the F4L. I want to do a quick shout out to the following people. Kip Brooks, father of both the Grayson, the Super Duck, and Noah. Many people to thank, apparently. I want to thank everyone who is part of the Icons of the F4L. I want to thank all of the people who are going to take part in our MMA tournament and everything else that goes along with that. And I thank you for listening, and may all your dreams come true. I'm the F4L Icon, Sean Jazz Stevens. Have a great time, everybody.